This conference will now be recorded.
I think everybody heard that. We are recording, and I think we intend, like we did with last week's meeting, we'll put it on the city's YouTube channel so you can watch it at your leisure or refer your neighbor businesses or friends to this. Welcome. It's the 3rd of April, and this is indeed our third meeting, Friday meeting with the business community to discuss the COVID-19 and our public reaction to that. I want to say, by the time we meet next week, I expect that I'll be celebrating my 19th anniversary with the city, and I never ever considered that I would be here 19 years, but it has been a privilege and an honor to serve as your community development director. This time, City Hall is closed to the public. The employees are still here taking care of your business, making sure the bills are paid. The utility crews are out making sure the water's flowing, the sewage is flowing, that you've got reliable public power. So we're doing our best to conduct business as usual within our abilities. And again, it's an honor to be of service to you.
Ed, Chamber, since you're the co-sponsor, give us a few seconds, would you?
Hey, sounds good. Thanks so much, Todd. Thanks to the partners, GMG.
It is trying times for all of us, especially for the business owners, and my heart goes out to everybody. I want to refer you to the websites, the Chamber's website, the city's website. If you go to our COVID business response, I believe the heading is, and then our good friends at Greater Mankato Growth, our partners in the Regional Economic Development Alliance have quite a bit of information on a lot of different topics. Local, state, federal responses, some other issues from the Minnesota Department of Health. So it's very good resources out there, and I hope you find those valuable. I do want to mention that the EDA met last Thursday, as we talked, and then the City Council met Monday. And so if you are an existing Economic Development Authority loan recipient and you would benefit from having a 4-month deferral of your payments, you need to contact my office, and I can administer that, and we can get your payments deferred to restart again. Then I believe it would be in August. So I want to turn things back over to Mr. Prakke. He'll kind of give you a little update beyond what I've added, and also give you a little bit of a message from the city.
So my message is going to be short. Russ covered some of the major things that we have here, but I want to give Ed a few seconds, since the Chamber's sponsoring and is hosting some of the information for this as well. Between us and the Chamber, you know, we're here to help you. So Ed, I'll be quiet for a little bit and give a few seconds, and then we'll jump into the other presenters and some of the topics that we have.
Hey, sounds good. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. For one thing, this is a way for everyone to know that you're not alone in this. We're supportive. The Chamber office, like the city offices, is closed, but we are fielding phone calls. We're checking emails constantly, 7 days a week. Just trying to be supportive, trying to connect people with questions to people who have the answers, the experts. The Chamber has a web page that has business messages. We're keeping up with that. Good example of that is we talked to QuickThrift today and said, you know, what's your message? What do you want people to know? And, you know, just as an example, they said, well, we want to keep encouraging that distancing when people come in and shop. And we also want to say that, hey, if you're at risk or for any reason, we'll come out and pump your gas. We will deliver groceries to you curbside, whatever. So that's the kind of information that you'll find on this webpage. Chambers all over the place are doing lots of things, virtual happy hours and different panels to get together for Zoom meetings. So we're fully intending to steal as many of those great ideas as we can. And I think at this point, I'll turn it back over to Todd.
Ed, it's Friday, and by this point in the week, I need more than a virtual happy hour, let me tell you. So anyway, Russ, you're going to do the next introduction. I'll get out.
Yeah, thank you. As we mentioned last Friday, the City Council was going to consider the city's response to the COVID-19, and On Monday evening, the city council met in a special session, and they did, first of all, they approved the deferral that I talked about earlier. Second, they have then approved the guidelines for the COVID-19 micro loan program. This is funds from the Economic Development Authority in town. We talked about the terms, the eligible business classes. If you are one of the eligible businesses, you should have received either an email from Ed or an email from my office, then that would include the information as to how to apply for that. After the council passed it, we sent out those invitations Tuesday. I mean, we've turned around loans. Right now we have, I believe it's 19 applications, and I'm very glad to say that the first checks are ready for distribution for the first 7 recipients. So it's been a whirlwind here trying to get everything done, but the businesses have been very thorough in getting the information, and so we have been able to turn that around, and I expect I'll get some more ready today for distribution early next week. Oh, I'm being handed a note. Thank you. So we have 7 ready for distribution. The eligible business list, up to $10,000 at 0% interest. That's the maximum. We're going to figure out your individual amount by taking your lease or mortgage payment. One business was on a contract for deed, but we'll take that payment, add it to your utility payments, and we'll come up then with a maximum amount. So if you have to have monthly expenses of $2,500 to qualify for the first 10. If you have $1,500 in qualifying monthly expenses, you'll only be eligible for $6,000 from the fund. So we take the monthly times the 4. If you are an in-home daycare, then we're also going to do another calculation based upon the percent of your home that's occupied by the daycare. So I expect we'll have a few of those. The repayment of the note would be deferred until June 1st of 2021, so just a little more than 12 months. And then when repayment starts, it will begin at $100 a month, regardless of whether you accepted the maximum amount of loan or you received a lower amount. Right now, our guarantee or our collateral is going to be your signature. So it's essentially a signature note. We will have a promissory note that you'll be asked to sign, then that'll establish the repayment terms again to begin in June 2021. You can contact my office if you've got questions on that. I do want to thank Sally in the finance department and Danielle who's cutting the checks for me. They've been working hard to get this through with me, and I greatly appreciate their help. Our good partners from Greater Mankato Growth, and again available to us through our affiliation with the Regional Economic Development Alliance, which is St. Peter, Mankato, North Mankato, Lake Crystal, Eagle Lake, and then Blue Earth and Nicollet County provide services to the smaller towns in those in our area. So our good friend Patrick Baker is here, and he'll be followed by our good friend John Considine III. And they talked last week about some of the federal programs, state programs. We're not going to go into the depth we did last week. You can find a lot of the information online, but we just want Patrick and John to give a brief mention about some of the benefits of the program. So Patrick, you're going to get the floor first here. You can talk about the CARES Act, please.
Hey, look at that. I'm muted. Good morning, everyone. As Russ said, my name is Patrick Baker. I serve as the Vice President at Greater Mankato Growth, and among some of my duties, work on our public affairs side, and I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about some of the federal programs that are available to employers right now. So first, if you haven't already, all employers under 500 are required to implement a new paid leave program under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that was passed about 2 or 3 weeks ago. That program went into effect April 1. We have the guidance that was posted for that program up on our blog. So that's greatermankatoblog.com. It's greatermankatoblog.com. You can check all that out, but there's basically 2 new programs, 2 new paid leave programs that will be reimbursed by the federal government that all businesses are responsible to have implemented and stood up as of April 1st and made available to their employees. The other piece is obviously this new CARES Act that was passed last week through Congress and signed by the president. The biggest program in there for small businesses, also all businesses under 500 employees, is the Paycheck Protection Program. Talked a little bit about that last week. This is a program that essentially will provide federal refundable refundable federal grants or federal loans for businesses to maintain their payroll, their rent, and sort of other affiliated payments for a period of 8 weeks. So that loan, that Paycheck Protection Program loan, actually went live today. You can contact basically most local banks, as they will be the folks that will be processing and taking applications for that loan program. So that's the Paycheck Protection Act. In effect, as of today, you can contact your local bank for application and additional details about that loan. The Small Business Administration emergency loans continue to be available under the CARES Act. There were some enhancements provided to that emergency loan program. One of them being that you can get the first $10,000 of that loan within 3 days, and that $10,000 will be forgiven. Don't need to pay it back. There's also some additional leeway that was put in there for reducing the amount of collateral you need to put up and reducing the amount of sort of personal guarantee that you need to provide for that emergency loan. So that's the quick update on the federal side. I'll turn it back to Russ.
Thank you, Patrick. Sorry, Todd, I just stepped all over you. You were going to take questions between our individual topics. So if you want to jump back, I see there's a couple questions about the loan program.
Yeah, so we have had a couple questions about the loan program. We are chatting back on those, but if there's anybody that hasn't or doesn't know how to use the chat or has a question right now about the local loan program, let's first talk about the local loan program, and we'll kind of go through a few questions there, and then we'll go back to what Patrick had talked about. So local program first.
Yeah, the application, there was a question from Livy about the application process. And if you're an eligible business, all you'll need to do is provide me a copy of your lease, mortgage, or contract for deed that shows the monthly expense. I need to show that it's current term of a lease, so it's in effect at this point. And also the address. So I need that along then with copies of your monthly bills, your city bill, your CenterPoint bill, your internet and phone and cable, your garbage bill, all of your monthly expenses for your bills, and then I add those up. So all you need to do is send those to me. I actually am filling out the applications, and then we turn that around, and once I have your signature on the application, I request the check. We exchange the promissory note electronically, and once I have a check, we are going to have you come to City Hall, and we'll execute them if we have to out on the hood of my car, but we'll make sure that we get the notes signed. There was another question about the eligible businesses, and just quickly, it's bars and restaurants, clubs and lodges like the Redmond Club or Legion Club, general retail sales, daycare and child care centers, salons, spas, and barbers were added Monday night. Then it's fitness and health studios, hotel, motel, public assembly. So think somewhere where you'd have a high school reunion, or you'd get together for a family reunion or a wedding dance or something of that nature. Studio galleries then. And then finally, cultural services, which would be organizations such as the Art Center of St. Peter or museums, etc. So that's the eligible business list. Unfortunately, we can't include everyone. We did have to make a list, and just like in 2009, certain businesses were eligible and certain businesses were not. It's kind of like our housing program that we've got under the city's identified a target area, and I have had calls from people that aren't in the target area that can't participate. Now I have some comfort in that I can refer them to Minnesota Valley Action Council and some of the other housing services. So it's kind of akin to this situation. If you're not eligible for the city, we certainly can get you referred to the federal and state programs that you very well might be able to benefit from. So anything else you can think of, Mr. Krafke?
No, we just want to encourage folks that if you weren't on that list, there are a ton of programs, some of which Patrick already talked about and some of which John is going to talk about in just a little bit, that are available through Small Business Administration and others. So make sure that you're listening through the entire thing. There's just not the local program. There's a bunch of state and federal programs that are coming down the pipe too. So we want to help you explore and understand those as well. So any questions for Patrick based on CARE and what he discussed just a few minutes ago? Any questions out there? Heather Barron asks a question, Patrick, sole proprietors need to wait until April 10th to apply for PPP. Is that right?
That is correct. It's basically your traditional businesses will apply, can apply today. The independent operators can apply next week.
So Patrick, also we've had now a couple of questions about will the local program interfere with the PPP, and we don't believe so. Maybe you have a better answer for that.
There's nothing that I've seen in the guidance so far that would indicate that you can't utilize multiple funding streams. What I will say, just as an FYI, is you can use you can take advantage of both the emergency loan through the SBA, that's the Emergency Economic Impact Loan, and you can take advantage of the PPP, the Payroll Protection, the Paycheck Protection Program, but you can't use them for the same thing. And it's important to know that with the Paycheck Protection Program, you get that loan refunded or forgiven if you use it for payroll, if you use it for rent, etc. So just be careful there that you're not, say, taking an EDA loan from the city and then using it to pay all of your payroll, because it may make you ineligible for loan forgiveness on that PPP loan when that time comes.
Thanks, Patrick. I hope that answers the questions that I'm seeing so far up on the chat. Let me get rid of my chat screen for just a second. We have anybody else that has a question for Patrick about those programs and CARES that wants to unmute their mic. I'll watch really close. If you have an unmuted mic, then maybe we'll jump in there. Doug has an unmuted mic. Doug, did you have a question about those?
No, thank you. I'll just call down to the city and talk to
All
Ross.
right, Liberty, I see your. All right, that'd be great. Thanks, Doug. If you want to mute your mic too, Liberty, I see your mic is open. Did you have a question that you wanted to pose right now? Are we answering them through the chat? All right, I'm not hearing her. So, Russ, who's up next?
Next would be John Considine III to talk about DEED Small Business Emergency Loan Program, and then he's going to talk about the DEED Small Business Loan Guarantee Program. So John, welcome.
Thanks, Russ. Appreciate having the opportunity to share a couple programs. First, I just want to highlight, really encourage everyone to take a look at the content that Patrick was talking about. The state appropriated $30 million for the Small Business Emergency Loan Program that had 0% interest, no cap on the business size, and they had funding ranging from $2,500 to $35,000. Really want to emphasize that that's only eligible for businesses that were part of the governor's executive order. I'll post a link into the chat about where you can find more information about that program. If you were interested in the program, you would want to contact the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. Now, I would highly encourage you to send an email versus a phone call at this point. They've had a significant interest in the program right now. And realistically, the federal dollars that Patrick was talking about is just a whole lot more than what the state can bring to bear on it right now. Federal government has a lot more dollars. So I'll post that link in just a moment. With regard to the Minnesota Small Business Loan Guarantee Program, this is a little bit newer. That one has $10 million in it. Right now, that's going to be another one you can access through your bank. So like Patrick talked earlier about, those federal programs to access through the bank, you can access the state program through your bank as well. Now, right now, there's only 40 banks that have joined up for the loan guarantee program. And that's also for employers that are 250 employees or less. So I will post a link into the chat for everyone to get a little bit more information. And again, highly encourage you to take a real strong look at those federal programs.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Mr. Prapke, you want to do a question?
So let me jump in there. I just want to mention for folks too that if we're posting links within the chat, we are going to rip those out before the end of the meeting, and they will get posted on the city's page related to COVID-19 business. So we have a separate web page that we're posting some of these links, and Patrick and John have been fantastic to ship us some of those as well so that you can get them in a good spot, because once our meeting's over, those will disappear a little bit on you. So we want to give you extra time to be able to find those as well. So questions for John about what he discussed in the state programming? Any questions in the chat box? I don't have any questions. The chat box, I see that Patrick and John both posted up some web information on there, so you got a few moments here to be able to get that going. Now I'm going to look for additional open microphones. Anybody got an open microphone that they want to ask a question, and I'll call you out if your name's on there. All right, I don't see anyone. All right, Russ, what's next?
I just wanted to mention last week we had Nancy Zolak from the Mankato Area Foundation and the Mankato United Way, Mankato Area United Way, and the Mankato Area Foundation have joined together and have raised some funding to assist the nonprofit sector. You'll remember Nancy talked a lot of the money's going to the shelters, the food shelves, those things that are immediately needed in our communities. Feel free to call Barb Kaust, United Way, or call Nancy Zolak at the Mankato Area Foundation, and they'll give you the information that you need if you're a nonprofit and how you might benefit from their assistance. That's all I've got, and that's all really the agenda, except for a question and answer session. We didn't expect to go as long as an hour like we did last week. We didn't want to go through the nitty-gritty details of the programs. I think we can find a lot of that information on the online resources, but we do want to keep assembling you on Friday morning as long as you're willing to join us. I think we're committed to do this. We hope you find it beneficial and helpful. Again, we have about 44, we just lost one. We have about 44 participants this week. We had 55 last week, so it appears there is some interest in us continuing this. Before we meet again next Friday, take care of yourself, take care of your family, help your neighbor, help your friends. Together, we can all get through this much easier than we can if we're all in our own little islands and just worried about ourselves. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve as your community development director. I want to thank Ed and the Chamber of Commerce for working with me to put these on every week. Greatly appreciate that. And Barb Larson Taylor is chair of the Chamber Board. I see she's on. Thank you, Barb, for your direction on this also. So, Mr. Prapke, I'm going to turn things over to you, and you can facilitate the question and answer session.
All right, let's go. So if there's any other questions or any other information you're looking for, or an opportunity to share maybe what your business is doing or what is found out, we do have some time here to spend together and share some of that information. So I'm going to look really quick down the list of everybody that's on, and if you open up your mic, wait for me to call on you, and we'll let you visit for a little bit, maybe share or ask questions about other things that are going on. As I'm kind of looking up and down, I do want to mention on kind of more of a community resident level, if you know people that are struggling, certainly look to them, help them out, and direct them. 211 is a resource that's being put out by the United Way, and so they're there to direct people to other resources, provide connection with volunteers, other activities. If you're a group that has volunteers to give or assistance to provide, you can certainly call in to 211 and get on their list. They're essentially a connection point for groups, programs, volunteers, and folks that have programs and in need of volunteers. So wanted to mention that one. Anybody got any other questions? I'm scrolling up and down. It looks pretty quiet for the most part. All right, as Russ said, our plan is to do this again next week. Before I make a last call, let Ed have a conversation, and then we'll turn it off. So I'm scrolling one more time. Don't see any. Ed, let me give you a few minutes, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, that sounds good. Thanks so much, Todd. A lot of interest in the old-fashioned 4th of July celebration. People asking, is it on, is it off, what's going on with that? The task force met on Wednesday, and they decided that they will make a final decision on May 6th. So if you can kind of spread the word that May 6th is the magic date on that one. Don't want to pull the plug too early, of course. Right now it's on, but everything's up in the air with all the events, of course, because of the situation. So the chamber committees continue to meet. The board of directors continues to meet, all virtually, of course. A lot of distancing going on. So that's really what's happening with the chamber and the most recent thing to report.
All right, Ed, thank you very much. We've got one last chat. Blues Fest is on. Corey Abels is mentioning that Blues Fest is on as of now. So they're meeting next week to discuss it. So if you're a participant in Blues Fest or interested in Blues Fest, next week we'll know more. But right now, Corey Abels says that they are still on. The ambassadors, of course, are the sponsors and the organizers of the Blues Fest. All right, I'm scrolling one last time for any questions. Scrolling one last time. Here, one more chat. Oktoberfest, some big news on Oktoberfest is coming soon. So hopefully Oktoberfest will go. We're going to need some fest, that's for sure. All right, that's it. So since we had 40 some folks again this time, we're going to plan to do this again next week. I'm sure Barb is in for that. Ed was maybe shaking his head that he's in for that too. I know Russ is good to go. Want to thank Patrick and John and anybody that contributed or put information on the chat. Again, watch for our website. We'll have lots of things on there. Patrick and John both put information up on their websites that can help you along, and call us. We're here for you. You can call Russ at his office at 934-0661. Again, that's 934-0661. Great to see all of you. We got one last one. Oh, thanks for putting this together. Mike, thank you very much for mentioning that. We appreciate you being on here again this week. All right, that's it. We're going to call it quits. Thanks for being with us. Next week, same time, same channel. See you next week.